In this video, we're going to talk about the second dimension of dependency injection, that is lifetime management. To illustrate lifetime management, let's go back to Visual Studio, and here we have our addbook.razor Blazor component. Let's comment out the inject directive. So the component is not going to use property injection, and instead scroll down and add a public property of type book service called book service, and instantiate it directly by creating an object of book service, passing in an instance of book repository into the book services constructor. Further, let's add another razor component called child component and make it a child of our addbook component. And inside the child component, in the code block, create a public property of type book service called book service, and once again instantiate it directly by creating an object of book service, passing in an instance of book repository into the constructor. So what have we got so far? The addbook component is responsible for creating instances of its dependencies, which is object composition, and also controls their lifetime. The same is true for child component. It is also responsible for object composition and controlling the lifetime of its dependencies. Now let's revert to using property injection in the addbook component. Let's do the same for the child component. Now that both the components use property injection, inside the composition root, we can have something like the following. var service1 equals new book service, new book repository, and var service2 equals new book service, new book repository. Now at runtime, service1 can be injected into the book service property of our addbook component, while service2 can be injected into the book service property of our child component. Since service1 and service2 refer to two separate instances, each of the addbook and child components will have its own unique instance of its dependencies. Now, since the responsibility of lifetime management is shifted away from addbook component and child component and into the composition root, it becomes possible to do this. var service2 equals service1. Now at runtime, if service1 is injected into the book service property of addbook component and service2 is injected into the book service property of child component, since both service1 and service2 refer to the same instance of book service, both the components get effectively the same instance. This way, we are able to manage the lifetime of our dependencies from within the composition root. Now, we used pure dependency injection, but a DI container can also manage the lifetimes of registered dependencies. The .NET DI container supports three lifetimes: singleton, scoped, and transient. To demonstrate these lifetimes, I'll go to the addbook component and display the hash code of our book service dependency by calling getHashCode on it. And I'll do the same inside our child component as well. So if two hash codes are one and the same, then they are the same object, but if they are different, then they are different objects. Let me clarify that even if two objects have the same hash code, they aren't necessarily the same instance. But for our demo, given that we know the different service lifetimes, we can assume that that is the case. So in the next 3 videos, we'll be going to the program.cs class file and play with the different lifetime named methods such as add singleton, add scoped, and add transient, and see their behavior.